to A Catholic Take, a bold synthesis of information and inspiration. I'm your host, Joe McClain. So good to be on with you. Praise be to God. Coming up at 30 past the hour, Dr. Anthony Stine joins us from Return to Tradition for the weekly roundup of news stories that he's been covering this week. Which ones stand out most? But it's his cryptic, the secretive power controlling the Catholic Church one that I really want to get to, because we're talking about the rise and the spirit of Antichrist in the world. You might have caught this video coming from Dr. Taylor Marshall this week of a German football team using Latin of all languages, not the vernacular, let that sink in, to conjure Satan so they can win a soccer match. Let that just ruminate on that. Have a listen to this real quick.
So they invoked Lucifer and they won the game. So as you can see, emerging out of the red pentagram is this infernal image.
A devil rising from the crowd dressed in black, chanting for Satan to come and take their souls. And then, of course, yesterday I saw this post over at the Exorcist Report on X. Lady Gaga releases new song called Garden of Eden, glorifying giving into forbidden pleasures as she portrays the devil. Wasn't it just a couple of years ago that she regretted selling her soul to the devil and she had a rosary clutched in her hand? Apparently that regret was not very, it was short-lived, let's just say. Joining us now to talk about this is Adrian Fonseca from America Needs Fatima. Good morning to you, Adrian. Thank you for your time.
God, it's good to be here.
I remember you and I were hanging out some years ago, and one of your favorite rappers, Little Nas something or other, didn't he do something also diabolic and crazy,
Right.
portraying demons and such in his video? So, like, is this on the rise? Are we seeing an uptick in this insane, out in the open embracing of the satanic?
Well, yes, I've been well known for my love of gangster rap and satanic music. That's my favorite genre of music. No, we've seen progression of these things from the fringe to the mainstream. And that's kind of the trajectory that Satanism has made. And this is what the revolution does in every aspect. It does small steps and gradually tries to desensitize the people through the tendential revolution by changing the way people act, by the way people live, by making it a joke. So the Satanism becomes the butt of a joke. You're allowed to laugh at Satan. He appears and you think like The Simpsons and things like that. Then it's in the fringes. It's normalized in the fringes. So you have your hard rock and those people are doing satanic music and things like that in the corners. And slowly, these things are starting to transition. My favorite example is Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Whenever, Joe, you were young, Sabrina the Teenage Witch came out, and that was very popular. And it was this young girl. She's like becoming a young lady, and she's learning that I'm actually a magician. Actually, I'm a witch. I have magical powers. How whimsical, how funny. And it's her getting into hijinks. Then in 2016, Netflix came out with its own updated version of Sabrina the Teenage Witch, which is outright and express occultism, where she literally sells her soul to the devil, signing her name in blood and doing all these horrific things. So what are we seeing? We're seeing it start off in the fringes, start off as something campy and become more overt and real Satanism. Because most Satanists will say, oh, I'm just an atheist. I'm not a real Satanist. I don't even believe in God. Well, then you're not even in a religion, first of all. But even if you do worship Satan, Satanism can't be a religion, because religion is the virtue of which we give God what is due to him. So clearly, Satanism is an anti-religion, not a religion. So we are definitely seeing not just a rise of Satanism, but it becoming more and more explicit and more the direct worship of Satan.
Something you and I have talked about on a few occasions, especially in regards to some of these like black masses, like the one in Kansas recently. There's a difference between the folks that do that and actual satanistic covens or cults. I bring that up to say that I can imagine some people saying right now, oh, come on, Adrian. It's just a caricature. Why? This is just like cosplay. It's not real. What's the big deal?
Well, because it is real. That's the problem. Even if there, because I'm sure that if you go back and you were interviewing like all these soccer players or these fans, many of them would say, "Oh, this is just, our team name is something similar. We're just doing this kind of thing." But you can't do something ironic for so long and so explicit where it no longer becomes sincere. It will become sincere because we are external beings. That's why God gave us the sacraments. That's why the way we act reflects who we are. That's why we have sayings like actions, not words, because we understand that our actions will influence our thoughts. There's a saying, I think it was George Bernard Shaw who said it. He said, we must act the way we think, or else be at risk of thinking the way we act. So if you are ironically worshiping Satan all this time, well, you will then end up worshiping Satan for real. You will change the way you believe by the way you act. And let's just say you never change the way you act, and the way you believe, you just keep acting this way. Then you're just a fool working for Satan instead of explicitly working for Satan, because now you're promoting his cause without actually even knowing that you're doing so, which makes you a very great fool, especially because it's very obvious what you're doing. So yes, I mean, there's definitely a lot of people who are probably atheist or maybe even identify as some weird brand of Christian while doing these things, but that doesn't make it okay. That is very concerning, really. It's the devil putting wool over their eyes.
How long until we have ecumenical dialogue with Satanists, do you think?
I hope never. I think that would be the sign of of the great chastisement happening that moment, because that's unconscionable. I mean, it's very clear, even in the American tradition, that it's a very pluralistic society, that Satanism is not a religion. We should not have some kind of tolerance for Satanism. Satan has no rights, and that's very important that we keep in mind. It's not another religion. As much as I dislike freedom of religion, I understand that's the law of the land, and that's how we have to approach things legally in the country. But I believe if we have some good lawyers out there who want to attack these after-school Satan clubs that are popping up in our schools all over America, these satanic worship that's happening in our state capitals and our court systems, if we attack it legally, I think we can win, because it's very clear if we look at what religion is, if we can get the Supreme Court to define religion, because religion, again, is the virtue to which we give God what is due to him. And Satanism doesn't even claim to worship God. It claims to worship Satan, who is not God. It's very clear. Now, and then the atheistic Satanists who say, "Oh, I'm just doing this to be edgy and ironic." Well, then you're definitely not a religion, because you even said explicitly that you don't believe in God. So how could you be a religion? So it's very, very clear to me that this should not be a religion, should not have religious protections, and we should have some good Catholic lawyers figure out a way to shut this down all the way up in the Supreme Court.
That's all true, but at the same time, it feels a little bit like a Band-Aid, because I think the harsher reality here is something I've talked about a number of times recently, is for every one Catholic that comes into the church, 8 leave out the back door. We had that conversation with Eric Sammons a couple weeks ago. Yesterday or a couple of days ago, I also published a video looking at Poland. Poland, only 1 in 4 Polish between 18 and 25 even identify as Catholic anymore. The Polish young are abandoning Holy Mother Church in droves right now. If that's not a canary in the coal mine, I don't know what is, because everybody thinks of Poland as being a great Catholic country. So it's getting worse, and it's already bad. I think that's the issue. When are the bishops going to get off the fence and decide to convert the world again? It seems like they've let that mission slip, have they not?
Well, unfortunately, I can't speak for the bishops, and unfortunately, there's not much that we can do on the grand scale. And so what we can do is press the attack in the sphere that we have influence over. So it is very tragic that people are fleeing the church for various reasons, but what we can do is evangelize the people that we come in contact with. What we can do is attack the revolution when it pops.
I think we might have just lost Adrian Fonseca from America Needs Fatima. Hopefully we'll get him back here. We only have a few minutes left in the segment anyway. We'll link to America Needs Fatima for you in the show notes. But let me just go back to this clip from Dr. Taylor Marshall because it's just so insane. They're chanting in Latin, by the way. They're chanting in Latin, asking Satan to come and help them win a soccer game. I can't imagine how anybody in the soccer stadium would be comfortable with that. But clearly, thousands were okay with chanting this and perpetuating this. Adrian Fonseca, are you back on the hook with us?
Yes, I'm sorry about that. I'm not sure what happened there. But no, what we can do is we can make sure that we attack Satanism when it comes up and whatever its form is, because obviously you have overt Satanism here, but also this transgender ideology and all these other things are Satanism in another form, this worship of self, this me. And so we had a drag queen story time here in Houston recently, and we got a group together at the last second to go and protest it. And we actually got assaulted while we were there. They were shoving us, tearing our signs, attacking us. Police had to come, and we need to have people mobilize in this way to combat this when it arises. And that's something that we can do, because things are not going to get better, not really, until we have the great chastisement and ultimately when Our Lady's triumphant heart triumphs, when the Immaculate Heart of Mary triumphs, like she said at Our Lady of Fatima in 1917, we will have things get better. And that's the only way. For now, things will continue to get worse as we see it happening. But what we can do is make things better in the sphere of influence that we actually have. We can try to press the attack, save as many souls as we can while we have time. So that's the hope right there, because every single person has an opportunity to be saved, and you could be the person that is the catalyst for their salvation. So we can make reparation for Our Lady's heart. We can save souls while we have time. So we shouldn't be despairing about the statistics, because we have no control over the statistics, all these people all over the world that are doing these things. All we have control over is what's in our vicinity right now.
AmericaNeedsFatima.org is the website. Again, we're going to put a link to it in the show notes for you. AmericaNeedsFatima.org. Adrian Fonseca, glad to have you back on the team today. Now, I would love to see more Catholic men, especially, maybe get involved in some of these demonstrations and to go out and make their witness heard. Do you guys post when you do these rallies?
Unfortunately, not. It's kind of a local thing. So you need to get involved with local people. So you don't have to have the TFP or America Needs Fatima to do these things. You could do them on your own, get some men together. If you have a TFP or America Needs Fatima near you, contact them. You can always reach out to them with any events, and they will try to organize things if they can. Go to our website, AmericaNeedsFatima.org, and you can send us an email there, contact us to get involved.
And pray, fast, and do penance, because nobody in their right mind should be conjuring Satan in any way, shape, or form. And you shouldn't be engaged in entertainment that does that. So you got to burn your Lady Gaga albums, your vinyls. Do they do vinyls still? Is that still a thing?
Gone. I wasn't going to, but after you said that right now, Joe,
all of your Lady Gaga vinyls albums are gone.
My records, I'm breaking them. I'm breaking my records. No more Lady Gaga records.
8-tracks, all of that stuff. It's got to go. Take it to Goodwill. Don't throw it away. We'll see you here in 2 minutes. Don't get it. Hear that.
Hello, this is Father Jim Netto with the Diocese of Portland, Maine. In Krakow, Poland on the 2nd of June, 1938, the Lord Jesus himself directed a young Polish Sister of Mercy on a 3-day retreat. Sister Faustina painstakingly recorded Christ's instructions in her diary, that is, a mystical manual on prayer and divine mercy. These instructions became Faustina's weapon in fighting the good fight. Jesus began, "My daughter, I want to teach you about spiritual warfare." Secret number 11, observe the rule as faithfully as you can. In this secret, Jesus is referring to the rule of a religious order. Most of us have made some vow before God in the church. For example, marriage vows or baptismal vows, and we should be faithful to our promises. Satan tempts to infidelity. lawlessness, and disobedience. Fidelity is a weapon of victory. God has given us the strength of free will, fortified in the blood of his Son. Neither the devil nor any other creature can control this free will, because it is ours given to us by God. By our own choice, then, we can hold it or let go of it as we please. It is a spiritual weapon, and if we place it in the hands of the devil, it right away becomes a knife that he will use to stab and kill us. On the other hand, if we remain faithful, and if we do not place the knife that is your will into the hands of the devil, you will never be injured by the guilt of sin in any temptation. Lord Jesus, you overcame temptations and vanquished the devil. Because of your victory, we too can conquer in the power of your Spirit.
Praise be to Jesus Christ. Welcome back to A Catholic Take, a bold synthesis of information and inspiration. I'm your host, Joe McClain, and here are your headline news. Breitbart reports Amazon joins bidding war for China's TikTok. Why? Anyway, Amazon has emerged as a potential suitor for TikTok, the embattled social media platform facing a ban in the U.S. unless it can find a non-Chinese buyer by Saturday, April the 5th. The bid, which arrived via letter to Vice President J.D. Vance and Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, comes just days before the deadline set by President Donald Trump. Trump said he had expressed a willingness to extend the deadline if an agreement is not reached by Saturday. LifeSite News reports Vatican calls for all Christians to set joint date of Easter. In a newly published text, the International Theological Commission, or ITC, has echoed calls made by Pope Francis for all Christians to celebrate a common date for Easter. The document issued yesterday is titled, quote, Jesus Christ, Son of God, Savior, and marks the 1700th anniversary of the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD. The year 2025, however, gives us a rare occurrence in which East and West celebrate Easter on the same date. Highlighting this, the ITC wrote, quote, there are already numerous proposals for an undivided date that are quite realistic. On this question, the Catholic Church remains open to dialogue and an ecumenical solution, close quote. And Catholic Vote reports man arrested after priest fatally shot in Kansas. Authorities on Thursday evening arrested a Tulsa man in connection with the fatal shooting of Father Arul Carasala in Seneca, Kansas that morning. Archbishop Joseph Naumann called on Catholics to pray for Father Carasala's family, for his parishioners, and for the murderer, that God may touch and transform his heart. But perhaps we should pray for Father Carasala's repose. I don't know. Just thinking out loud. And those are your headline news. Praise be to God in all things. I don't know if you are already subscribed to Return to Tradition. If not, why not? You should do so today. I have. I love it. He covers so much ground throughout the week, both live and uploaded videos. And Dr. Anthony Stine, friend of the show, is on the team today. Good morning to you, Dr. Stine. Thank you again for your being on with us.
Good morning, and thanks for having me on again.
So let's do a weekly roundup. What story stood out to you most? There's a couple, I think, in your coverage that I want to tap into, but what stood out to you most this week?
I think it was the live stream I did this morning on a story that is not getting covered really outside of Spain, and that's the bishops of Spain working with the Vatican to sell out the Valley of the Fallen monument to the secular authorities to turn it into a monument for our democracy. Now, I put the word our in there, but the way they spoke about it was spookily similar to how the Western English-speaking liberal left-wing politicians have been talking about our democracy for the last, I don't know, decade. And they're taking this monument Franco put up that was mostly a monument to those who defeated essentially communism in their civil war, but also included the burial of those who fought on the other side as a gesture of healing. And they've turned it into a monument to democracy with a chapel there, and kicked out the monks who were objecting to this and allowed the monks who kept their mouths shut to stay. And they did this in a program of exchange with the bishops, where it looked like they were going to be giving a a tax system put in place of some kind, like what they have in Germany, except in this case, they've been a tax to pay off the victims of clerical sex abuse happening in Spain. In other words, that the bishops of Spain were not going to face the consequences of hiding sex abusers in exchange for giving up the thing that the left-wing government that's been there since Franco's death have hated the most. It's just a reprehensible story. And the Vatican facilitated this. Cardinal Pietro Parolin was key to this. Parolin, whose name comes up the most consistently as Pope Francis' successor from that faction of the cardinals. Remember, he's not apparently liked much by Francis, but he's actively campaigning for this already.
Yeah, and Francis doesn't fire him either.
He authored the China deal. He authored the China deal. And he authored this deal.
We brought this up, what was it, I guess a week or so ago when we looked at this. What surprised me was that the monks had requested that basically they had said, we will do whatever Pope Francis wants us to do. But Parolin stepped in and decided to negotiate this. And Francis, as far as we know, it's not been reported. Maybe you can correct me. As far as we know, Francis hasn't said one thing or another about this. Only Parolin has been negotiating this.
We don't know. We don't know if Francis was even involved in this at all, because what little he was doing administratively while he was convalescing. I mean, let's be honest. They admitted later that he was at death's door a couple of times. So
I saw an article. I guess it was yesterday, the day before, that Spain basically no longer identifies as a Catholic country. I mean, King St. Ferdinand, Isabel, they're probably rolling over in their graves right now, just to think about how much effort they had to put into Reconquista Spain for 700 years to take it back from the Muslims that had invaded. And now they no longer identify as Catholic. Poland, I talked about that last segment. Poland, well, only 1 in 4 Polish 18 to 25 identify as Catholic. Ireland, of course, is gone. England is pretty much gone. France is pretty much gone. There's nothing left in the West, is there?
No. And this is compounded with the cell phone tracking data. People object to the cell phone tracking data because there's a misconception. If you are, for whatever reason, not wanting to be tracked via your cell phone, turning your phone off will not keep law enforcement from being able to locate you. It might keep the civilian access websites where you can locate your phone, but law enforcement can still track you. And somebody did a study in conjunction with the Pew data that we keep talking about that's horrifying. And they discovered that when you look at cell tracking data, that it's about like 8% of people in the United States who call themselves Catholic go to mass on a regular basis.
Wow.
We're not that far away from Europe.
8%.
And Pew Research, when they're defining what a regular mass attendee is, they're talking about someone who goes twice a month. So again, that's not what the church calls you a decent practicing Catholic. You're going every holy day of obligation and every Sunday.
I have to say that it seems to me like anecdotal evidence for the spirit of Antichrist in the world today is getting more and more intense, more and more real. I mean, I played that clip from Dr. Taylor Marshall, him covering that German soccer game where they're invoking Satan. Even if they meant that to be just in jest, they don't know what they're doing clearly, because they're calling something so evil to come to their aid that they are opening up a wide door to possession, harassment, and all the rest. It seems like the world is more inclined to this now than ever before. Do you think that's a fair statement? I mean, can you remember back when you were a kid? Was the world this crazy when you were younger?
No, the world wasn't this crazy. And when I was a kid, it was only like the fringiest of rock bands that would openly do that, right? We're talking like the Cannibal Corpses of the world were the ones who would do that. Now, you have soccer teams doing this,
right?
And those bands were in their own mind. Those bands in their own mind, 9 out of 10 of them were LARPing. They were pretending. That doesn't mean what they were doing was a good idea. That does not mean they were not opening themselves to evil, but they just were trying to get a rise out of people. They were being stupid. I don't know what this is with the soccer teams. I don't know what this is now when I see people doing this.
Yeah,
because it's not just trying to be edgy. I mean, unless the other team they were playing against was like the equivalent of like the Vatican soccer team or something. I don't have that detail of that story because I couldn't find a good source for that story when I was looking it up myself. But
Yeah.
so, there is a categorical difference between somebody just taking that need that some rock bands had of just upping the ante on being edgy until like the late 90s when they were just all continuously doing that versus whatever we're saying now, because part of it's intent. And I'm not saying that being stupid and messing with things you don't know what you're messing with is a good idea.
Right. Yeah.
But these guys sound like they were actively trying to get some preternatural help. Again, categorical difference of what they're doing. Not excusing the former, but the latter seems worse to me.
It kind of, I mean, it's like the Ghostbusters thing, but in reality, like they want this to happen. They want to open this giant portal and let the devil and the diabolic come into the world and harass and possess and destroy. And it just seems so insane, so suicidal from a spiritual perspective. It kind of gives greater weight to the words of our Lord when he said, when the Son of Man will return, will he even find faith on earth? Are we not seeing that? The harsh reality of that? Will we even find faith on earth? It seems like that is coming true, isn't it?
Well, especially combined with what many practicing Catholics, according to all the data, there's a study published. I just sent myself a link to it so I can cover it later in the week later on, where something only like 9% of Catholics believe in the Trinity, which means only 9% of Catholics are Christians.
Only 9%. Wow.
That's nuts. What happened? What happened? And I know what happened. We those of us who tend to take a more traditional view of things can't help but notice that a steep decline in faith happened at the same time that suddenly the orientation of the church and its ecclesiology, meaning its theology about its relationship to the world and its mission in the world, changed. It became much nicer. Suddenly, let's redefine extra ecclesia nullis salus to be as inclusive as possible. And chastise priests who may have gone a little too hard on the other side, the Father Feeney's and things, because, when you read the final things he said, it's hard to defend that, but it's still, I'm sorry, but it was, you go back a couple hundred years and you would have had a hard time finding a pope saying something like, oh, as long as you're baptized correctly, then you are in the church, because it usually included more than that.
It seems to lack great
the church has gotten,
charity. We lack charity towards our neighbor because we don't proclaim the truth to them. We let them die in ignorance.
If you had told Pope Gregory the 16th in like the 1820s or 30s when he was reigning, that not in the grand scheme of things, not terribly distant future, you would have Roman pontiffs, a succession of them, saying, Muslims worship the one true God with us. They're just wrong about a few key theological points. What do you think would have been the response from the Roman pontiffs of the 19th century? Any of them. They would have been horrified. Absolutely horrified.
Yeah.
So the nicer the church gets in the world, the more synodal it gets, the less faithful the faithful become. The best of us today, my contention, a very unpopular one, is the best of us today are lukewarm by comparison to the harder line practicing Catholics from a century ago, 2 centuries ago. The church has gotten nicer and we've become more lukewarm.
I've always wanted to give the benefit of the doubt. I always felt like a little bit of a naive person, I suppose. I've just like, maybe so many in the hierarchy of the church, maybe they just naively think that what they're doing is good. And they're wrong. They're sincere, but they're sincerely wrong. I don't know if you can come to that conclusion anymore, because the evidence suggests as the church is decimated, its members leaving in droves. In Germany alone, 4 million in just the last decade have abandoned the Catholic faith. No salvation outside the one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church, and yet 4 million walked away from it and no longer want to be identified in any way to the Catholic faith. That's a terrible reality. Mm-hmm. And you got soccer teams in Germany invoking Satan, and yet the German bishops double, triple, quadruple down every time on this insane agenda that they want to perpetuate on Holy Mother Church. That is suicide, Dr. Stine. I just can't come to any other conclusion than they intend for this. They mean this. This is their goal. And that should be a real wake-up call to every single Catholic. That music means we're at a break. Dr. Anthony Stine is our guest. Return to Tradition is his YouTube channel. We're going to link to it in the show notes. But on the other side of the break, I want to talk more about that, have him follow up on that. Plus, he's got a super secret video out just about 40 minutes ago. The secret of power controlling the Catholic Church. What? Okay, we're going to have him spill the beans on that one, I think, too. Plus the after show. All that and more still to come on A Catholic Take. And your commentary in the after show as well. So whatever you think about all of this, do you believe the spirit of Antichrist is on the rise, or am I just overreacting? Let me know one way or the other in the com boxes over at thestationofthecross.com/ACD. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Our Lord commanded the apostles to preach the gospel without fear, to proclaim the truth from the housetops. Now From the Housetops Radio is a weekly program that features the same Catholic doctrine, devotion, and inspiration published for over 45 years in From the Housetops magazine. Produced by the slaves of the Immaculate Heart of Mary at St. Benedict Center in Still River, Massachusetts, From the Housetops offers inspirational lives of the saints, guidance from the great masters of the spiritual life, reflections on the liturgical year, church history, apologetics, commentary on current events, and much more. Now you can tune in weekly to From the Housetops Radio. Join us every Saturday at 6 p.m. right here on the Station of the Cross Catholic Media Network. That's From the Housetops, Saturdays at 6 p.m.
Here's the question for your non-Catholic friend. Does the word penance seem too Catholic and unnecessary? Are you fine with the reality of repentance, but not with the idea of penance? Well, here's your 3 best friendship tools for Catholic evangelism. Number 1, good parents. Your finest son throws a ball at his brother, who with precision ducks, thus breaking the window behind him. Of course, forgiveness is granted. You then punish him for disobeying the command to not horse around in the house. So here's the rub. You then tell your son to go break out his piggy bank and pay for the new window. Have you had to do that? If so, then guess what? You believe in penance, not just repentance. Secondly, food and beverage trends. We have Pepsi Light, we have Yogurt Light, we have Bud Light, but can we please stop with the Christianity Light? St. Cyprian in the 4th century wrote, quote, "This penance is characterized by the exercise of tears, lamentation, fasting, and abstinence." Yikes. And thirdly, my take. Remember, forgiveness is for the guilty, repentance is for the disciple, but penance is for the brave. Come on, non-Catholic pastor, teach your flock penance. Find me online at Smarty Pants Catholic Evangelism.
To Jesus Christ. Welcome back to A Catholic Take, a bold synthesis of information and inspiration. I'm your host, Joe McClain. Praise be to God. And support comes to us in part by our good friends at iCatholicMobile.com. My family has a phone on the plan, and we love it. Couldn't be more happy. And a portion of the monthly bills comes to us to support what we do and make it possible for producer Jake and I to get up every morning, crack o' dawn, just to bring you the latest news from a Catholic perspective. So thank you, iCatholic Mobile, for being on the team. You can find more information about their plans at iCatholicMobile.com. We're having a conversation with Dr. Anthony Stine from Return to Tradition. Dr. Stine, welcome back to the show. We've been talking a lot about the crazy rise of the Antichrist in the world. And, the point that I made just before the break was I don't no longer believe naively that these players in the hierarchy, maybe are they sincere? Are they just sincerely wrong? Or is there something more nefarious? What would you say to that?
I think they're true believers. I think they truly believe in what I've kind of half jokingly called a Babylonian captivity thesis. That thesis about Christianity comes from Protestantism. Not all Protestants believe this. There are various variations of this, but you see this common thread, especially among like American hyper-evangelicals, which is that they believe Jesus established an organized church early on. But then it got taken over by that great evil man, Constantine, who put in a bunch of paganism and things. That's the Protestant version. The American version, and of course the Protestants believe that Jesus was so very lucky to have Martin Luther and Henry VIII, men of pure, unimpeachable moral integrity come and save his church for him, that Jesus was so lucky. That's how I condescendingly refer to it. It really gets a rise out of them when you say it that way because they can't refute it. But the version you see in the church, Catholic Church, is that at some point after the church was public, right around Constantine, I've seen the same argument actually. He started getting these accretions and this purity of the faith. And at some point, the church became so rigid and clericalist that it functionally disappeared and was a rigid clericalist institution. And boy, howdy, isn't Jesus so very lucky to have Annibale Bugnini and his whole cohort of modernists, the Pariti at Vatican II, rescue the church and give us back the church at the only council they ever talk about, Vatican II. And I tell people that while admitting fully, Vatican II is not the problem. It was kind of their coming out party. That's why you had, again, let's go back, Gregory XVI writing papal encyclicals warning about the sort of new weird trend that he didn't have a name for, but it was essentially ecclesiastical liberalism in the hierarchy in the 1830s. It's why Pius IX had to say things about Americanism. It's why, well, maybe not Americanism, but he had encyclicals against essentially liberal ecclesiology during his papacy. And Leo XIII had encyclicals against these things before Pascendi and the Oath Against Modernism. This stuff was building and building and building over time. And these true believers fully say that many of them truly believe God gave them the counsel to rescue his church from rigidity and clericalism. That they truly believe they are on a divine mission to reorient the church, to make it more relevant. Those are the most dangerous ones.
So what can we do about that? Is there anything we can do about that?
Have a good Lent. Pray, fast. Make sure to pray for these bishops. I don't go online to critique these guys because to stir people up to hate them. Souls are on the line. The souls of these bishops, the souls of these priests, and the souls of the people that they lead astray. The people who think Pope Francis is a luminous pope sent by God to make the church relevant again, those people are being led astray. And there is no alternative for them because you cannot be saved outside the church. God can do what he wants, it's his prerogative, but I don't like anybody's chances if they're not in the church. It's what maybe this generation was called for.
When's the last time you heard? When's the last time you heard of a call, either in a local diocese or at the Vatican or someplace where they called for missionaries again, religious communities to send missionaries, not for corporal works of mercy as much as to actually try to convert and evangelize cultures? There's a story out in India today about a whole bus being stopped and attacked by Hindus. They were just going to make a pilgrimage to a city. They're going to go from church to pray. And the whole bus gets stopped. The priests get beaten and dragged to the police station and accused of converting. You know, it would seem to me that 250 years ago, the Jesuits would have happily endured that beating if it meant converting those Hindus. Now nobody dares to even try.
You get whispers now of a disordered, diabolically inverted version of this. You get sometimes people in Rome or high-profile cardinals and bishops pointing out that the West is becoming mission territory. Objectively true. This becomes disordered when you start getting some of the American cardinals suddenly calling on people to do what sounds like missionary work, except it's for their political purposes, to get their money back from the government for immigration and things. Their language. If you read these statements that they make, it sounds like a call to arms for Catholics. And what are the arms of Catholics? It's prayer and fasting and action of words to evangelize people and bring them to Christ. But instead of that, it's all those things to get Congress to give them money to help immigration.
Wow.
It's scary.
Yeah. All right. So before we run out of time, we'll probably follow up more on that in the after show. But before we run out of time, you've got a new video that just posted this morning. The Super Force, the secretive power controlling the Catholic Church. The Super Force. What are you talking about? Like the Power Rangers? I mean, is this like the Autobots Unite, or what are we talking about here?
The video is a few clips from a few things, from a few interviews that Malachi Martin gave with people who were not Art Bell. He did a lot of interviews back in the 80s and 90s. One of them is from a show called Steel on Steel, whose host I can't remember the name of. This was 30 years ago when he gave these interviews, so I'm not sure that man is with us anymore, to be honest with you. But he spoke about an attempt, and he wrote about this going back to the late 70s in his first work of Faction being his fact fiction. Fact is in everything he's telling you is factual. The names are fiction, and there might be a few narrative details he puts together to make it to present it to you in a novel, like a book novel way.
Yeah.
But the facts are the facts; they really happened. And the scheme of this group of people, who we now later on, and if you read his book, The Jesuits, he's talking about the Jesuits who have dominated the Roman Curia since the Council, but as well as others. They had a scheme to reduce the papacy to first among equals, like the Orthodox want. And their mechanism for achieving this would have been the forced resignation of a reigning Roman pontiff, a theme Malachi Martin came back to over and over again in his books, including being one of the main plot points of Windswept House. Whenever anybody mentions Windswept House, they only ever talk about that satanic ritual at the beginning of the book. They never talk about how that book is essentially exposing the role of the deep state and a particular brand of Freemasonry out of Israel. The one that he keeps getting accused of being an ally of, even though in that book he shows world leaders kneeling in worship to the head of that organization.
Yeah.
I don't know how you can be an ally of an organization and then expose it being diabolical in a book. But okay, maybe I can be convinced of it. I don't think so. But that book is about essentially the deep state and the deep church. Borrow Archbishop Vigano's terminology for it.
Right.
So again, but he was talking about this for a long time. In Windswept House, he talked about this being targeting of John Paul II for forced resignation. He just missed it by one, if you believe Benedict was forced to resign. But
do you remember?
In this, he talks about this as a mechanism and how they controlled the Roman Curia.
Do you remember, real quick, because we're running out of time here, do you remember when Pope Francis, at the beginning of his pontificate, talked about reducing the papacy down to something more of a, just another bishop, just sort of another bishop of Rome? Remember how we got rid of Vicar of Christ out of the yearbook? Oh, man. Gee whiz. Seems like we've seen this story, this plot twist before. Hey, you should check out that video and Return to Tradition on the YouTube channel. We'll link to it in the show notes. The Super Force, we'll link to that so you can check that out. We'll also go into the after show and continue to take your comments, your questions, your conversation points, all of that. thestationofthecross.com/ACT. We'll see you right back here Monday morning. God bless you. So what did you think of today's show? Let's discuss that right now in the after show. Your take on the after take. Comment, interact live with me and the team. All you need to do is search for one of our live video feeds on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, LinkedIn, and elsewhere. Simply search for the Station of the Cross, Joe McClain, or A Catholic Take. I'm looking forward to seeing you and interacting with you directly. It all starts right now. It's the after show.
And we're back. Welcome to the after show, everyone. Happy Friday, First Friday, and the Feast of St. Isidore of Seville. I love St. Isidore.
I do too. I gave a great talk on him a couple of years ago. I was invited to speak at a conference in San Diego, California, for Catholic IT professionals, and so I told the story of St. Isidore being the father of the encyclopedia, but the patron saint of the internet. His work was taught in seminaries for 1,000 years. I mean, that's how good it is. Praise be to God. Probably still is in some places. So, St. Isidore.
He sounds too rigid.
He sounds way too rigid, that dude. Ora pro nobis.
I do want to mention the other thing about that video, by the way. That today's video, the Super Force one.
Yeah.
Pope Francis, day one of his papacy, signed a resignation saying if he was incapacitated, it would go into effect. That document is right out of Windswept House and out of everything Malachi Martin warned about. He called it the Resignation Protocol. So, again,
yes,
stuff isn't new.
Yeah, it's not
He's
new.
been right. I hate to be the guy. People will have these hats that say Trump was right about everything. I would never wear that hat, but I thought it'd be funny to make a Malachi Martin was right about everything hat.
I need a
He was.
tinfoil. I need to make a tinfoil hat. Just have it on hand for conversations like this, because
Well,
I have a
you're
feeling.
You're in the Houston area, aren't you?
I am.
So it should be a 10-gallon hat, a 10-gallon tinfoil hat.
That'd be
10
great.
gal-
A 10-gallon hat. There we go.
I will make that hat. I promise you.
A 10-gallon hat. That's
I have a feeling. I got a feeling that Pope Francis has disappointed the St. Gallen Mafia and those that vote for him. Now, he's obviously kept his into the bargain on many of the agenda items. Fiducia Supplicans, Traditionis Custodes,
Remorse Laetitia.
yeah, all that stuff. Like, he's definitely kept up on that. But I have a feeling it's on this point that he's let them down. Because like we said, in the beginning of his pontificate, he started to talk about decentralization, reducing the primacy of Peter to something more equal. And yeah, he's hinted at that stuff. He's talked about that stuff. But he's been the godfather. He's been the heavy hand. He's taken vengeance upon his enemies. And only now that he's sick and can't rule anymore, I mean, that's the perception anyway, that maybe the Paralins and all the rest are like, oh, this is our chance. It's now or never. What do you say to that?
And I think people need to not underestimate the St. Gallen Mafia. You cannot underestimate them. They were already starting to meet it 2 years ago in St. Gallen, Switzerland again.
Again, yeah.
It certainly have filled the ranks of those who have retired or died since in preparation for this, because they know that if they get a good pope, the jig is up. It's over. If they get a moderate pope, it buys them time. This is why I don't want like somebody like Cardinal Mueller as pope. I don't want Burke as pope. Cardinal Burke, I don't think would do anything. I don't want most of the men that people call the super conservative based cardinals. Most of them don't do anything but write letters.
I think
they're not going to do things. They're not going to rock the boat. They are too wedded to the paradigm, the post-conciliar paradigm,
right?
Which is why you have this problem.
Well, I would say this.
I don't know.
I would say one, they're hoping he dies soon. I think one, they're hoping he dies soon. I think number two, I think they would say, if they were sitting here and they were part of this conversation, I believe they would say, okay, hold on, guys. If I raise concern, if I call for the hierarchy of the church to judge Francis, etc., I could be perpetuating a ginormous schism within Holy Mother Church, and I don't want to be responsible for that. So I imagine they would say those kinds of things, but ultimately, at the end of the day, they really just want Francis to pass on, and they're going to hope for the best out of the next conclave. But I think that's, in some ways, that's just naive. I mean, you got Francis on the last conclave. What do you think you're going to get on the next one? You're going to get Pius the 13th. It's not going to happen.
I think they're already organizing, and I think they're probably going to rally around Parolin because he hates the Latin Mass. That is high on their list of things to get rid of, and Francis didn't finish the job on that. And I think they approve of the Spanish deal and the deal in China. But I think even more importantly than that, Parolin, even if he's not as good as they would want, will not undo what they've already accomplished. And I strongly suspect they are organizing already for this. And they should not be underestimated. And part of the giveaway, I think, was I covered this story and it didn't get a lot of traction, unfortunately, but most of the other Bergoglian papabiles are suddenly being sued by laity or covering up predator priests. And they're being sued in the Vatican courts. And the cardinal who's overseeing it is Cardinal Pietro Parolin, is the one overseeing their case. How convenient.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
That's a gem, isn't it?
He can hit them hard. He can hit them hard by cut their legs out from under them in the next conclave and make himself look like he is a zero tolerance person on that issue.
Yep.
When it's a lie. Because
good times.
I keep going back in my mind to this it was a homosexual activist in Rome who reported that something like 80% of the cardinals are active in that way. And it's like half the priests. And people dismissed it saying, well, you can't trust the guy. I'm like, well, true. You can't trust the man. But there is no other explanation for why they have been unwilling to can James Martin. Why they've been unwilling to act
or
on this,
Rupnick.
unless most of them are. Why is it that they get rid of young priests who pray the rosary, who have too much of a Marian devotion, who pray the traditional breviary, who express even a little interest in the traditional mass, unless it's that problem?
There's active homosexuals running parishes in this diocese that I live in right now, and it's known. It's not even like it's known to those that are paying attention. It probably is somewhat vague to most who aren't, who are oblivious, and it's just like over their head. But I guarantee it's definitely known by the chancery downtown, and yet it's going on. It's a thing. It happens all the time.
I was relieved, legitimately relieved, when I discovered that the neighborhood parish, just a few blocks from where I live, the priest there, the new priest who was assigned, is a barrel-chested, Eastern-looking, bearded priest who often is seen in his gym clothes leaving his rectory because he's on his way to go power lift. The guy exudes masculinity, and in the confessional is not too harsh, but you can tell he understands things. Wow. And I suspect he recognized me when I was in confession.
Uh-oh.
He said to me.
That's not good.
But he did.
That's my worst fear.
Well, I'm still here talking to you, so I guess it's fine. But I suspect in both dioceses in Oklahoma, a memo went out with the names of every potential troublemaker, because
your name is
there's a traditional parish in Tulsa that a weird number of Catholic bloggers go to, a weird number. It's strange how many go, and I suspect a memo went out to just keep an eye on these people. Because that's what I would do if I was a bishop.
That's the downside of our business, isn't it? Something I think about a lot of times when I'm traveling. It's like, oh yeah, I often forget that although I'm a small player in the overall scheme, sometimes I run into it and it kind of catches me off guard. It's like, oh yeah, that's right. I do public things. I think it's worse for me. It's not so much for how it affects me personally. I've made my choice and I'm willing to live with it. Usually it's how it affects my kids that bother me the most, or my wife. If my wife has been lambasted by people, especially Michael Lofton followers, they have treated my wife scornfully and disrespectfully, and so has Gloria Purvis and her followers. Treated my wife.
You're in a different kind of environment than I'm at, in here in basically rural Oklahoma. So, but yeah, I expect someday that's going to happen. I have yet to be recognized as far as I know, by somebody who hates me and hates what I do in public.
Yeah.
I've been recognized in parishes by people who watch or have watched and don't have an opinion one way or the other, but I have not had a problem yet with somebody who would hate me. But, my wife and I like to go on road trips. Sometimes they're just like day trips, but these year we now do about annual drive somewhere, gone for several days, live stream from the road, produce videos from the road kind of trips. At some point, it's going to happen. It could be a trad who does it too, by the way. There are traditionalists who completely disagree with everything we do.
Oh, yes. I know. We have some in the com box.
And I'm not talking like sedevacantist either.
Right, yeah.
I mean, you'll get trads who will be like, well, Francis is just bad at communicating. Or he's a little misguided.
I wish.
But you should have absolute reverence for him. I'm like, look, I got enough grief already because I wasn't out here cheerleading that he might die and telling people to pray the imprecatory psalms against him. Like, if you want to pray the imprecatory psalms, the church permits it. You better be sure, 100% sure, that the person you're aiming those prayers at is worthy of that, and that you are in the right. Because that's to me is a little bit like fencing with a uranium rod. I don't know. Maybe I just don't think I want to go there.
Yeah, exactly.
Not advised. Hey, speaking of, let's give us some shout outs here. Sharon Felton is on the team. Sharon, you're amazing. God bless you, Sharon. You're so generous. iCatholic Mobile is also here. Extra Ecclesiam Nulla Salus. He wants us to follow up on that conversation and talk about, it says, Jubianus, of his conviction that baptism conferred by heretics is not valid. He wants you to address that and talk about the water, fire, blood. We'll come back to that in a moment. And Country Catholic, God bless you. God love you. He wanted me to talk about insurance. You're considering insurance. What kind of insurance, Country Catholic? Are you thinking about health insurance, life insurance, homeowners insurance? I hate insurance, to be honest with you. I wish I didn't have to have
Insurance is a necessary thing in our world.
My
I live in
insurance,
Tornado Alley.
Yeah.
Insurance sucks, but you have to have it. I mean,
exactly.
I wouldn't have a house right now.
It's a necessary evil. What just one more log on the fire lately. We've been fighting with our homeowners insurance to get a roof replaced for a year or more because we had a hurricane. Well, not quite a year. I guess it's been under a year. We had a hurricane that damaged the roof, and so we've been fighting with them. They didn't want to do it. They're like, no, sorry. That's like their standard operating procedure is to say no to everybody, and only those that fight them tooth and nail to the bitter end get any help. And then we finally get the thing approved, and we're moving forward, getting a roofer out. And they're like, oh, yeah, by the way, here's our pay raise for the year. So $2,000 had to come out of the ether to give to our homeowners insurance so they can get their pay raise. Thanks.
So we got a curveball on our on this office that I'm building here. We're building a garage because I don't know why you live in Tornado Alley and like carports, people. What's wrong with you? All you're doing is giving business to contractors every time you get a near miss tornado that requires you to get some shingles put on your roof and your carport blows off into the night sky. Garages are much more expensive, but they tend to survive. You'll replace your door, maybe, God willing. So we're building a garage, and the structure is up. It leaks because it's not done, but the contractor stopped midway through to get the city to come out, and that's when the nightmare began. There's an adjoining room that will connect the house to the garage. It's kind of a weird shaped structure. And the contractor said, the city hit us with you can't have a garage attached to a house in this town through where it connects at a bedroom, which is how we were going to do it. Here we are with the structure already up.
Right.
Many tens of thousands of dollars spent on this already. And now they hit us with this. And so my out on this is, well, the structure that adjoins it is going to be a workroom, no different than a shop. There will be that room between the garage and the bedroom. That's what my hope is. It's a weird structure. When it's done, I will probably do a little video that nobody will watch showing off the space, because
that's good.
A viewer last year was like, hey, let's do a GoFundMe to help you out with this. I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm glad he did, because it paid for about a third of the construction.
Praise be to God.
So,
like in the state of Texas, I don't know how it is in Oklahoma. I heard there was an effort to do away with property tax in Oklahoma. I'm not sure where that's at, but in Texas, they shot it down when they tried to do away with property tax here. But in the state of Texas, my county gives themselves a pay raise every year, no matter what happens. They don't get pay raises, so we don't. No matter what happens with our finances, the county's like, well, we're going to get our pay raise every year, no matter what. You can argue it all you wish. You can hire people to argue for you. It doesn't matter. It's a rigged system. They definitely get a pay raise every single year. And if you don't pay your taxes,
there should be a citizens board that reviews pay raises for people. I don't want to put it up to a broad vote because people always vote against it. And I'm not against giving public servants raises, because the reason you give public servants raises is to prevent corruption. But it would be good to have some kind of check against it. And
I argued in front of the citizen board a couple of years back, and I realized this is a rigged system. So they have one, and that satisfies that need, but they always give themselves a pay raise every year, no matter what. They get the raise. So my point is, if I don't pay my property taxes, they take my house. I could own my house outright. They could still take my house. You never actually own your own property in the state of Texas. That's true for most states.
This is why the only property tax that I would support would be a property tax at point of sale, a certain fixed amount that you pay, and that's it. And if you do an addition to your house, maybe there's a property tax applied on the difference. So if you add that garage and suddenly it increases the value of your property by this amount, and they come up with a fair way of saying, this is the amount of new tax that you owe, fine. Okay, I get that. But a tax in perpetuity? We threw tea in the harbor for less than that, okay? I'm just
exactly.
throwing this out
so crazy to me.
But the problem is, if you do this, you're going to have low service governments in every state in the union. And some people, Americans, love their social services. You start looking at the polling data on Americans and social services, and they get very defensive. Very, very, very defensive. I am not against I'm not against things like Social Security. In principle, I'm not against it. Personally, I'm in principle not against the food stamp program. I hate how those are abused, especially the food stamp program. Actually, I really hate how that's abused. Yeah. Don't even get me started on it as a subsidy for big ag. I mean, it's insane what they do with that. But Americans are very pro big government while being anti big government at the same time.
Right.
Doge gets high marks from the public. You might not be aware of this, given the absolute frothing at the mouth of rabid reporting on this, but it turns out every time they do a poll, they find out that 70% of Americans approve of what Doge is doing. And I think those numbers are about to go up because Elon Musk announced the greatest thing ever, which is, hey, how do congressmen and senators get so wealthy on their wages? How about we're going to look at them next.
Exactly. Bye, Elon.
I hope Elon Musk has got good personal security.
Oh, he does. Yeah, I've heard him talk about that before.
Elon Musk on a lot of things. I'm not a fan of generally anybody who puts on a Halloween costume that clearly he bought it because he loves the game Diablo. You know, that upside down cross one. I have played,
or wants to put an implant in your brain and interact with the ether. No, thank you. Thank you, but no, thank you.
Right. But this is not a guy who I trust to do anything other than be autistically focused. I don't mean that in a derogative way. But focused, hyper-focused on getting people, putting human boots on Mars.
How many kids does he have with how many women again?
Better internet, all that stuff. But I don't think he's the Antichrist because he doesn't fit the bill anyway.
I think he's going to be a useful tool.
Well, I mean, anybody developing technology is going to be. The Antichrist system is still way off just because they need to replace the entirety of the current system for convenience sake. And then it has to be there for a long time for people to be used to using it before the Antichrist can make use of it.
But I definitely think we're on the road.
Right. Yeah, we are. I mean, we've been on the road. We've been on the road since Golgotha. But I mean, we're on the road. We're clearly on the road and going high speed down it. And it's one of the reasons why I kind of wonder if the predictions of a material chastisement, World War III, are off, because that would blow up their whole system. Unless World War III was part of their Antichrist reign or something, but because you have to have a system in place that prevents people from being able to buy and sell. That's the internet. That's a weaponized internet. You got a hint of it in Canada with the truckers. But it has to be on a mass scale and no alternatives.
China is
so you have to then have the World Economic Forums of tracking every grain of rice and every head of cattle that's sold. But it has to be on a worldwide scale. And when you start thinking about these things logically, you can see that we're, on the road towards it. But how long until we get there? Because that's a massive infrastructure that they haven't set up yet. It's not just, it's like, I'm not against Bitcoin, but I know how that technology will be used. But that doesn't mean I have to be against every technology, because it'll be misused. Otherwise, I have to be against kitchen knives and hammers. And I'm not against those things either.
So you're saying what you do with it. So you're saying you are of the Star Wars a take on technology. You like technology that can replace your hand, give you surgery, but it doesn't take over your life. Humans are still in control of everything.
Generally, because at the end of the day, if you want to combat these things, what you need to do is convert the culture and promote virtue. Large-scale agriculture exists, but there are plenty of people who still do work the ground with their hands and do things themselves. Because technology exists doesn't mean you have to use it. For example, a nuclear weapon, the church is very clear about the use of nuclear weapons in war. Not counter-signaling that at all. I take the unpopular position that Pius XII was right about the use of those nuclear weapons in World War II, by the way. Especially when you actually do read the history that I want you to read about Japan's multiple attempts to surrender before Hiroshima. They tried to surrender. By the way, for those who don't know, the church has always said unconditional surrender is satanic. That you are not supposed to leaders cannot put the fate of their countries in the hands of their conquerors. Unconditional surrender is satanic. It's evil. Right? And the U.S. imposed unconditional surrender on Japan. Acquiesced on one condition, which is that the emperor would still be allowed to reign as a symbolic leader. But anyway, A nuclear weapon is a tool. What can it be used for besides deterrence? Because I'm not a big fan of mutually assured destruction. It doesn't strike me as a Christian concept.
Have you read Annie Jacobson's Nuclear War?
I have not read that.
It'll scare the pants off your neighbors. It's that scary.
Go watch Threads. It's a UK movie made like in the 80s or something. It's about a nuclear war that happens, and it takes place in a town that is a target, and the survivors go through unimaginable hell. Like I wouldn't. No thanks. It's literal nightmare fuel. If you're squeamish, don't watch that movie. But nuclear weapons do have other purposes. They can be used for other things. You know, it's like people saying nuclear energy should be banned because you can make a hydrogen bomb out of some of the materials. If we banned everything that could be used for a bad purpose, we'd be basically, I don't know, we'd be basically enslaved to a state or something. Because we'd be just having other people care for us. You're supposed to pursue virtue. You're supposed to elect people who are virtuous. Or failing that as an option, at least put people in office who aren't going to wage war on the church. Right? Those are what you're supposed to do. And in a virtuous culture, you're not too worried about a guy like Elon Musk trying to put everybody into computer chips in their brains and thinking the purpose is going to be of humanity is to create like an AI dawn or something, whatever it was he said. That was insane. But then again, he's a materialist. Ultimately, he is a materialist. I don't defend the guy. Just understand. Don't think he's the Antichrist. The church tells us not to speculate on who the Antichrist is, because you're going to get it wrong until he shows up.
Yeah.
I don't
think we need to either. I don't think we need to do that.
Tradition.
I don't even know how profitable that would be. At the end of the day, it's going to become clear because you're going to be asked to worship him as God, and if you don't, you're going to be martyred for the faith. So there you go. You'll have the opportunity for clarity soon enough. So don't even worry about it.
It's profitable in a different way. There are high-profile Catholic podcasters who do entire series trying to convince you that some businessman in the Middle East right now is the Antichrist. There are Catholic podcasters right now who are too cowardly to use even their own voice in their videos now. So they use AI voices behind video footage or behind pictures and do news reports and do videos about prophecy and things and misread them. They do it for clicks. There are people out there, we saw this with Francis being sick, who could not help themselves. Francis's death is imminent. That junk. Never forget. What is Lent about? It's about confronting your lack of virtue in your faithlessness. Confronting it head on and trying to help right the course. That's what it's about, ultimately. That's what the penance is about. That's why, I'm giving up chocolate for Lent. Well, once you kind of have a Catholic awakening, you realize you got to do something more. And maybe if you have a disordered relationship with chocolate, you should give up chocolate. But
do I ever have a disordered relationship with chocolate? Oh, man, I've never met a chocolate I did not love in droves, in bucketfuls.
Oh,
even
my
Hershey's?
wife can tell you about this. My wife has strong opinions about chocolate, and she's not the biggest chocoholic out there. She just remembers some like knockoff chocolate that I can't remember the name of it, but it was always showing up in like Christmas and Halloween stuff. And you'd eat it and it tasted weird. And then you look at the ingredients and like it's like 1% cocoa and the rest is like the rest of the chocolate flavor comes from carob bean or something. It's just weird stuff.
I could now some chocolate.
There is a line. There is chocolate that I do not approve of.
Vitamin C, Eric Powell, you're right about that. It is the greatest vegetable known to man is chocolate. Praise be to God. It comes from a plant. It's a vegetable. Toblerone used to be my favorite, though.
It's a bean. Cocoa beans.
Yeah, right.
Meaning,
grows on a bush.
If you are ever told that you need to eat more beans, that you need to eat more legumes,
drink more coffee,
that's permission to have a peanut butter cup. Yep. It's got 2 kinds of legumes in it.
2 kinds of legumes, exactly. Bean on bean.
It's protein rich. It's a bean. Go for it. That's how I'm justifying things.
I need some fiber. I should go to the Snickers bar. Right? I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Oh, man. I used to crush. Remember the king size Snicker bars? Like, just crush them.
The first Friday in Lent, I knew we'd get on food eventually.
I laughed when I saw those first time marketed as sharing size. I'm like, who are you kidding?
Who are you sharing this with?
Sharing with me. Stop it.
Me, myself, and I'll share it with 3 people.
Eat this half because I'm not going to overdo it. And then 20 minutes later, like, what have I done? Guys.
Lost Creole says he invites me to the farm you grow cacao. Buddy, text me your address. I'm on the way. Hopefully I'll arrive just after Lent
You're there
ends.
Monday of Holy Week.
Yeah.
I'll be there Monday of Holy
Monday
Week. I wish, pal. I really do.
It sounds like a. It always sounds like a Batman, original Batman series sound effect. Cacao. I expect it to like pop up on the screen whenever it gets mentioned.
Man, it's so good, chocolate. Chocolate is so good. I can't. But I gave up sugar because it was killing me. So can't really do it.
Yeah, carbs do that
but
to me, too.
I
start to
still
feel
do
like
chocolate. By the
but-
way, this is how I do chocolate. It's because I'm gone carnivore. I get 100% cocoa bar at this grocery store. 0 sugar. Tastes bitter, but I still enjoy the taste of chocolate even without sugar. So I will have.
I have an alternative for you.
A little. Oh yeah. So if I
You
really
use
want to
Element
cheat, I'll rub
electrolytes?
monk fruit on it. But
Do you ever use Element electrolytes?
yes,
They have a chocolate flavor. That's great in coffee.
really, really.
At Christmas, at Christmas time, they have a chocolate holiday pack. I don't know if it's around a year round. I only ever see it at Christmas.
Huh.
That has a chocolate caramel, a chocolate mint, which is amazing, and a chocolate raspberry, which I am not that big of a fan of. And these are or next to 0 calories. I mean, right? The calories in Element come from their from the acid they put in it as one of the ingredients.
Interesting.
Their chocolate one, I wouldn't call it drinking black coffee anymore when you pour it into there. But if you put it in a 20-ounce mug of coffee, your coffee tastes wonderful.
I had some cold black coffee the other day. Illy. I hadn't finished
my cold brewed, or was it like
so it was?
You came back the next day to the coffee pot and had been sitting out all
No,
day?
so it was. I made enough. It was Illy Classic Roast, I think. I made enough for 2 cups, and I didn't really feel like finishing my second cup, and so I just stuck it in the fridge. I was like, I'll put it in the fridge and I'll drink it later. And so I came back to it chilled, and it had a really nice coffee overtone to it. Chocolate overtone to it. It was, really nice, smooth black coffee, ice cold, so very refreshing. But had these really nice chocolatey notes to it. I was quite pleased by it. It almost tasted more like hot
Brothers
chocolate than
Nitro
coffee.
Cold Brew
Great.
has the same thing.
Yeah,
Actually,
it
their
was
Nitro Cold
very
Brew
nice.
has chocolate undertones.
Yeah.
Joe, if you want to email me a mailing address for you. When the last time I ordered some Element, their Christmas packs, they also included sampler packs that I could just give away to people, and I've got like 2 of them. I'll send them to you.
I will be emailing you. I would like to try that for sure, 100%.
If
Anthony
Houston was,
asks,
my family goes to Buc-ee's in Texas pretty regularly, but Houston's a bit of a drive. Otherwise, I would just hand deliver it to you. But
maybe we meet halfway next time. That'd be fun. Praise be to God. That'd be a fun hookup between families. Anthony, our good friend from Avoiding Babylon, the supposed construction worker, he posts these pictures on occasion of him, in a safety vest with a hard hat, pretending to be. I think he's the foreman, apparently, allegedly. But anyway, he says, "What do you guys do on Fridays for Lent if you are carnivore diet?" Well, you eat fish, just like everybody else.
or you do what I don't like talking about this publicly because I'm a big believer and follower of Christ telling us to keep your fasting to yourself, basically. But when people legitimately ask, and I will answer this question, I have been trying to get back to full total fast from Thursdays to Saturdays.
Very nice.
And until I fell off my low carb thing, because during Lent, for whatever reason, every year, whatever it is I'm trying to do to make it harder, right around the middle, something happens. It's not really a mystery. You're in battles against princes and principalities, right? But I had carbs, and that makes my fasting way harder.
It does.
I will probably, if I can't make it all the way through today, I'll have some fish. But otherwise,
it's so much easier to go without carbs.
I try to do a total fast from Thursday to Saturday.
Oh, wow. Good for you.
With
That's
coffee
awesome.
is my only crutch, because coffee
I do
will
a
take the
total
edge off.
fast Wednesdays. I do coffee and water, and I'll do tea. No sugar, no sweetener, no cream, none of that. Just black coffee, water with electrolytes. I also put a lot of salt in. I'll put salt. I put salt in my coffee.
You got to have the salt.
I put, good salt, not the cheap stuff, but really good
No, you're
salt.
looking
I
at
had it
Redmond's real
exercised as well.
Less salt. Yep. Less salt.
Less salt.
Less salt. I put less salt. I put a pinch of less salt in coffee no matter what, because it actually improves the flavor just a little bit. Not
Exactly.
enough that you taste it, but enough that it improves the flavor.
But it's
and-
good
You remind me
minerals
that
for
I
your
need to
body.
reorder my
and
Redmond's
it's also
real
good for you.
salt that I'm
Yep,
without.
exactly.
Ooh,
Yeah.
Redmond's
You
real
need the
salt's on
salt.
sale right now.
There you go.
Yes, that's we get that as well. Hey,
Need the
Gurgwensa
salt.
says women get blamed for being chocoholics, but I am noticing that men are bigger chocoholics. I like cacao, but I'm not a cacaoholic.
Cacaoholic.
Cacaoholic. How do you say it? Cacaoholic.
See, I don't know. I've never been addicted to chocohol.
Chocohol? I don't know, man. Chocolate is
That's an old Norm Macdonald bit. Like, I'm a workaholic. For years now, I've been hopelessly addicted to workahol.
workahol. Exactly.
It's one of those words that ends up. It's kind of like calling everything blank hyphen gate, because you had Watergate, and then everyone's like, oh, now it's Pizzagate or whatever, and things like that. And it's like that doesn't even actually make sense as an extension of anything. Like it that doesn't as a word construction, it makes no sense. Just like workaholic, like you're not addicted to workahol, you're addicted to work.
Chocolate is nasty. Anthony, stop right now. Take a moment. Pray to God for mercy, because chocolate is God's gift to humanity outside of the sacrament.
Anthony's just being
So-
contrarian because Dr. Stine was
What?
talking about social programs earlier, and then Anthony was like, I think all social programs are evil. He's being contrarian on a Friday. that's all.
Polachicho, mi amigo, my friend. Good to see you in the chat box again. Thanks for hanging out with us this morning. He asks, does salt stop ketosis? Dr. Stein.
No.
No.
You need more.
There you go.
You need more salt in a ketogenic diet of any kind than you do on a normal
It's also
diet.
good minerals
I
for
hate
your
to-
body.
Yeah, it's necessary. If
Yeah.
you are, I have done the. I think the most I've gone was, I think a full 72-hour fast. That might have been the longest. But you need the salt to keep getting through. Your body needs the salt for sure.
The typical person needs 2,500 milligrams of salt a day on a normal diet. On a ketogenic diet of any kind, I needed minimum 5,000 milligrams a day to 7,000 milligrams a day to hit the sweet spot. And I knew I was suffering when I started feeling really bad, or more likely, I was doing everything on paper to lose weight. My calories were in the right spot, my protein and fat ratio was fine, but for whatever reason, my body was not losing the weight. And it was fixed when I upped my salt to closer to 7,000 milligrams a day. Then boom, all of a sudden, the body was working the way it should.
Yeah.
Best sleep I've ever gotten in my life.
Yes,
in terms
salt-
of quality.
salt will actually help you
proper
sleep.
quantity.
Yep.
Was when I was doing a ketogenic or carnivore diet when hitting that sweet spot with my sodium and exercising. I was getting 5 hours of sleep a night and felt like I'd slept 8. So
Best salt.
Again.
What's the number one salt that you would recommend?
I go with what Dr. Ken Berry, the carnivore doctor, one of the few who has children, by the way, that's becoming my litmus test for people to pay attention to. Do they have children? Yes or no? If they're contracepting and they're preaching a carnivore diet because it makes you super healthy, then they
Hypocrites.
need to take a long look in the mirror about what it is they're doing. Dr. Ken Berry has children. His wife keeps a keto-ish kind of diet. He keeps to a carnivore diet. And he recommends you go with a land-based sea salt from the continent you live on. In the United States, it generally means Redmond's real salt, because it's not going to have nearly the microplastics and heavy metals problem that stuff from the ocean has. And it's got minerals and things that you need.
Bible
I like
says to
Redmond's in
eat
the United States.
sourdough
There's a good one in
bread, you
Australia.
heathens, says Loki.
I thought
sourdough bread.
I thought it was Ezekiel bread, the stuff you cook over the dunghill
It's
fire. or
fermented
whatever.
though, right? Sourdough is fermented, and fermented foods can be good for your digestive system.
You need to
They
keep
can
the
be.
gut. You need to keep the gut
even when I'm-
bacteria in balance.
When I'm doing hardline carnivore, the only plants that I consume are my coffee, and once or twice a week some kimchi or sauerkraut if you prefer. My stepdad was Korean. I like kimchi,
Sauerkraut.
but it's good for the stomach.
Sauerkraut. We were
Good
just talking
pickles
about
are
Rubens
too.
the other day.
But in general, that stuff. But yeah, I like Redmond's real salt,
Redmond's real salt.
and
I'll
I
look
just
that up.
reordered some actually because I was running out of it. I was dry brining a steak for Saturday, and going, "Oh, I'm out of salt."
You know what
I should order
you know one of my
some.
favorite meals, and I get this, I don't know, every couple of weeks. My wife, who apparently loves me, because she buys me this massive hunk of lamb on bone. Oh, so
Good lamb is good.
Uh,
Good lamb is
so
great.
good.
If
Bad
you're planning,
Bad lamb smells when you're cooking it and tastes like roadkill. Good lamb.
This does
Very
not taste
subtle.
like or smell
Joe,
like that. This
Joe,
is
if
so good.
if your wife is planning on making lamb sometime after
Great
Easter,
Friday conversation, by the way. Red meat.
Well, what I'm saying here is a good Friday conversation because it's about blessings. There is a special Easter blessing for lamb in the Roman ritual, Joe. So have your wife bring the lamb to your priest on Easter and ask him to bless it before she makes it for the next time.
Like the hunk of meat, you mean? Like
yes,
bring it to the.
it's a blessing for lamb meat. It's
Have her get. Do you live in Texas? You're required by law to have some kind of a grill, aren't you? And other things to make a grill. That's the law down there, right? Like, so,
sir, we just noticed you do not have a grill in your backyard. You're going to have to come with us downtown.
It's like the Swiss gun laws. It's the Texas grill laws.
It's
you know?
like you've got that thing you let your brisket rest in. The cooler you have for your brisket to rest in. Clean it out.
I hate to admit this. I got rid of my grill.
Take it to mass. And
the last time I had a grill, the fire department was involved. I have not owned a grill since. I actually have a scar. I actually have a scar from the experience that remains on my hand today.
You need to clean your grill then.
Yes.
I have a pellet grill, and people like to, grilling purists will say pellet grills don't make smoky meat. I'm like, well, I make better brisket than the restaurants in my town do, and I'm only kind of competent at it. But at least it's like I only ever buy barbecue from the restaurants around me when like I've made a mistake of some kind and don't have anything that I can have on my carnivore diet for dinner. Then I'll go and do that. Otherwise, I have brisket's cheap, even at the inflated price cheap brisket cost these days. And I can make a week's worth of meat out of one brisket.
I know. So good. So good.
Wonderful Friday conversation. Really,
Yes.
It truly is.
Yes.
I have started
you can't have any of this today.
On a Friday of Lent where I put it in the grill and went to bed and then came back and finished it, and it was ready by lunch on Saturday.
This is as bad as that other first Friday when Michael Hitchborn was guest hosting and Dr. Stein was on, and we ended up talking about exotic meats for the whole after show. And exoticmeatmarket.com, and Michael Hitchborn was giving us his analysis of emu meat. It was great.
Emu.
That was a great Friday show.
Oh boy, that jarhead.
We could have talked about meats yesterday and 80s movies today, but nope.
Lost Creole. We can't have MREs anymore. It backs up the system. It's just not good for you. That is the crazy thing too.
Mostly carbs anyway.
Yeah, because you need tremendous amounts of calories if you're going to be in the field, fighting and hiking and doing all of those activities in the Marine Corps. You need tremendous amounts of calories. So it's funny because when in the recruiting office, you saw, at least back in my day, I don't know what they do today, but you'd see all these posters, comparing the body to a sports car, right? You want to perfect your body's performance. So all this physical fitness, right? And then you get in the Marine Corps and they feed you pizza and they feed you hamburgers and they junk food. Like, I'm just like,
right.
what
Like,
this,
I don't understand.
What are we talking about?
That would be the equivalent
ridiculous.
of buying a Maserati and buying the cheapest gas from the suspect gas station that probably cuts it with water. That's just what you're doing. You're blowing up your engine.
It just didn't make any sense, but whatever. I wasn't a nutritionist. What do I know? But I just remember the MREs, in the field just backing us up. And we would, like, if you weren't drinking constantly, you would clog the system, let's just say. And it was always a problem. It was always a problem. Johnny boy, everyone's ready now to break at the fast for meat. Yeah, exactly. We've ruined it. Lisa, good morning to you from Cooperstown, New York, home of the National Baseball Hall of Fame. Well, Lisa, welcome to the team. Glad you're here. Drew Black is here. Good morning. Evelyn, E.T. is on the team. E.T. go home, or which E.T. is that? Et? Good morning. Siobhan is back. Good morning. Doug, good morning to you. Stephen S., I see you there. Johnny boy. The Blind Guy, Foodgate, the ACT after show. Yeah, we get into some really deep conversation in the after show, usually about food, movies, cars.
We started with the pseudo-heretical clergy controlling the papacy, trying to force.
We ended with meat,
and now we start talking about barbecue. I mean, it's a wild time in the after show.
From deep state to the meat state.
To the meat state. Lisa, good morning, says, I usually miss the live stream. Glad to catch you here. Have you ever heard of the woman prophesizing about the Antichrist featured on the John Henry Weston show? Yeah, talking about Luz de Maria. Yeah, she's been talking for a long time now. And she allegedly had a message that said the Antichrist's name is Alex, but he's going to go by a different name. Is that Alex Soros?
But he goes
I
by
will
Alex
tell you,
Soros, so it
I
doesn't
am
work.
generally suspicious of any active mystic.
Yep, me too.
Someone who's been
I don't
active for a decade.
I just don't think it'll be that obvious,
I get
personally.
generally suspicious of them, just because it's. Yeah, I don't know. I want the church to rule on this stuff, but they won't.
But she's got to want to
Go
rule
look
on
at
it too.
Marian apparition guidelines, folks. You're never going to get a ruling on a Lois Erlmeyer or any of these other people. You're just never going to, because they're not in the business of confirming miracles anymore.
Jay Thor,
And when you
Dr.
read that,
Berg
you
for
think
keto and no one else, says Jay Thor. How do you feel about Dr. Berg? Is he Scientology? He's a Scientologist, Dr. Berg.
I haven't watched a Dr. Berg video in ages. There are group people I like in the low carb space for different things. There's a guy who's pretty foul mouthed, who's a doctor out of New Zealand, that I like because he likes to go dunk on like misinformation, and he gets really brutal about it. And he's actually in like the Kiwi military, and sometimes we'll just do his live streams in his uniform. So he gets
Really?
foul mouthed. I like that guy because
you're not allowed to do that
nonsense.
in the American military. You're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to be.
Well, it's it's the Kiwi military. What are they going to go fight? I mean, come on. Someday the Chinese probably. I don't realize that yet, but but
they'll never fight the
I
Chinese.
like Sean Baker and I
It'll be
like
too
Ken
late
Berry,
by
and that's
then.
about the only ones I pay attention to anymore.
Honeybee, good morning to you. Your little suburban house and postage stamp land costs $17,000 in property tax every year. Let that sink in. That's insane. It's
Again,
such a robbery.
And I'm reminded of what something Sister Lucia said. Talked about the entire world run by communism. I sometimes wonder, because under what logic are you basically paying the government the right to live in your house even after you've paid the bank off? How if you somehow lived to 150, you were one of these Social Security people that Doge found, except you were actually real and not just a line item in some grifting operation somewhere. And yet you're living in the same house. You've paid the house off 12 times or something in the property taxes. Under what world is that right and just? It's not.
It's not.
That's
Yeah,
why
it's not.
I'm fine with a one-time assessment of a property tax that you pay to the government over the course of several years, and then it's done. And then if you add on to the property in some meaningful way, then you have to pay a little bit on that. But beyond that, an in perpetuity tax, I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
I loved when Trump was saying, "Hey, let's get rid of taxes on Social Security." Do you know who gave you those taxes on Social Security, by the way?
Who?
Do you know who the senator was who fought for that and got it put in?
Biden.
It was Joe Biden. Yeah.
Good time.
He did that. Social Security should not be taxed. Any money you put into savings should not be taxed either, because you pay taxes on it already.
I think, by the way, Chained Franciscans, welcome to the team from New Hampshire, from sunny Granite Staters, New Hampshire. Second best, some say best overall state in the country for overall tax burden, because they only have property tax, no sales tax, no income tax. And I got to say, when I left New Hampshire in 2006, one of the reasons why I had to leave was because of the property tax. It was so expensive to live there, but I was making peanuts. I was making next to nothing. I had 3 jobs to try to make it all work, and I was killing myself in the process. So coming to Texas helped with that. But now I had 2 acres in New Hampshire on a lake. Now I have a postage stamp with a house and just some grass, not hardly anything, like a tiny, tiny lot. 10 feet neighbors. I got neighbors on both sides. And crammed into and I pay more in property tax now than I did in New Hampshire with 2 acres on a lake. I had a forest
Texas
of
is
my own.
notorious for its property taxes. Taxes
It's
and fees is
unjust.
Texas's way of getting it.
And I believe that if a couple retires and they've paid their mortgage off, they shouldn't have to be paying property tax at that point.
Mm-hmm.
It's unjust to continue to charge them thousands and thousands of dollars because your county wants to get its pay raise. Because it wants to do more and more projects or whatever. It's just the whole system.
You better
is
be
messed
prepared
up.
if you're going to advocate for that. You need to come up with a counter argument against the thing everybody will hit you with who knows anything about this stuff, which is, what about all the good things that local governments do with your tax dollars? And they're not going to talk. They're not telling you roads, Because nobody says the government
Schools.
shouldn't maintain the roads.
Goes to
We're going to talk about
schools.
schools. We're going to talk about, in my state, Oklahoma, Sooner Care. It's the state health insurance program, one of the best in the country. There's a lot of desperately poor people in Oklahoma who have the ability to not be bankrupt by the medical system because they have Sooner Care. Those things go away if you eliminate all the taxes. I want to get rid of grocery sales tax on groceries in every state. I'm perfectly fine with a sales tax on luxury items, including luxury grocery items. I don't think it's unreasonable that the state would say, we're not going to tax your normal everyday groceries, but if you're going into Costco and buying the full ribeye roast, it's like $200, we're going to put a tax on that. Fair. Okay. Fair. But in general, there comes a point where you're paying the government like orders of magnitude more money than the church expects you to pay. And you got to start having a real conversation about.
I think this is
what
the fruit
about a relationship to the state.
It's a fruit of the modernist heresy of divorcing church and state. The one Holy Catholic and Apostolic Church is meant to govern governance. And if there's no moral principle through which the government governs, then you get stuff like this. And this is one of those modernist heresies Shindy warned us about, and here we are living it in its full glory and grandeur. Overpaying because, that was one of the problems in New Hampshire. Going back to New Hampshire was, and I've used this anecdotal story many times before, is I had friends, coworkers at work who lived on a piece of property that was on an island in Lake Winnipesaukee, the lakes region of New Hampshire, and they had that property in their family for generations. Well, retired folks from New York, from New Jersey, from Massachusetts, from Rhode Island, they all decided to retire into New Hampshire because why? The taxes were cheaper. So they take their retirement, they leave their high tax states, and they go to New Hampshire, a low tax state, and they get there and they build a mansion on the next door to the family that's been there for generations. And then they're like, well, I don't want to take my own garbage to the garbage dump because that's pretty common in New Hampshire, at least when I lived there it was. I want someone to go do that for me. So then they get involved at the town hall. They get involved in the decision-making process. And they're like, hey, we need to have someone for the whole town picking up garbage. That costs money. So we're going to raise taxes. We're going to start to raise taxes.
Not only does it cost money, you have a moral obligation to pay those guys a wage.
Right.
For doing an unpleasant job that they can support their families on.
100%.
Because you can't escape that.
Yeah, and you know what? This road is not paved. This road to my house on this island is not paved, and that bridge needs to be built. That's a couple $1 million or whatever. So like, hey, we need to get all this done. So the rich folks got involved and they started lobbying and they started pressuring for greater services in their retirements. And now I knew these folks are like, well, we have to sell. We can't afford. We own the land. We don't all have a mortgage on the land, but we have to sell because we can't afford the taxes now. I mean, think about that. That's a tragedy that could be avoided. And it's not being in many places. It's not being. And that's now becoming more and more true, like in Portugal, for instance, because all of these family farms were abandoned and they moved to the cities. And now all these folks from England, for instance, are moving to Portugal in droves, buying up these farms for cheap money, pennies on the dollar, and then fixing them up. And now the local folks are having a harder time getting housing, affording to get affordable jobs, to be able to afford the groceries, et cetera. So that same effect is happening in lots of places. The Dolomites in Italy is another example of that. So we're seeing it in a lot of folks. It's tragedy. It's tragedy. Evelyn, good morning, says you can't buy a simple breakfast or lunch anymore in New York City. Everything is $15. I would rather buy and cook my own food then. We do anyway. Trader Joe's has Taylor pork roll. Never heard of a Taylor pork roll.
It's from New Jersey. New Jersey is famous for, it's sometimes called Taylor ham because Taylor is the big company that makes pork roll. And it's delicious. It's a bit like a bologna, but different.
It's different though.
It's different though.
It's different.
Yeah, it's more like it's got more filler in like a good way, like in a way that adds like a texture. It's interesting. And it's very good. And Wegmans carries it, which makes me very happy.
Wegmans.
It's a nice little change of pace from ham or
Wegmans
bacon.
for the win. If you have a Wegmans, you don't need a Trader Joe's.
Try that up.
Wegmans
Exactly.
is fantastic.
We don't have either out here. The nearest Trader Joe's is somewhere in the city. We have Aldi,
We got
though.
Trader Joe's.
Aldi,
We don't go
Aldi's
there.
not bad.
We've got an Aldi literally at the entrance of our neighborhood. So we went there yesterday to get our meat. They got good selection for meat on occasion. Praise be to God. They also have, I saw that they had salmon from Norway. I was tempted to buy it, to try it today. But
So Norwegian salmon is farmed.
It's farmed. I didn't get
farmed salmon. They have different standards for farmed salmon. So it's, as I understand it, better than American farmed salmon, because American farmed salmon usually comes from like some third world dystopia where they have no standards.
Right.
And at least they have standards in Norway.
It's horrible.
It's still not good for you. It's not, I mean, it's better than,
it doesn't, it doesn't taste
it's Friday,
good.
so let me go get the mystery fish sandwich from McDonald's. I am convinced that was that was an option divinely inspired for Catholics who are needing to do penance but don't really realize it as well as they should, and are prone to eating that stuff. And so it's a penitential option for them because of how it'll make them feel later. The McDonald's fish sandwich is disgusting. And every fast food place this time of year has their own clone of that thing. Yeah, they try to dress it up, but it's still, at the end of the day, it's gross. It really is.
My wife and I found a fish market just down the street from our house. I took her there for her birthday. My wife's Portuguese. She absolutely loves all seafood. I'm less inclined, but she loves it. So I took her there just to see what they had. We'd never been in there. We've lived here for 20 years. We've never been in there. And the guy, he flies fresh caught salmon in from Alaska, wild caught salmon. And so he has these beautiful,
delicious
red salmon fillets in there, and he's got clams and oysters and all this stuff. So my wife is very excited. We're gonna try to pick up some of that salmon and give it a taste. Night and day difference between that and what's bought at the store. The store stuff is horrible. Although lately we've been getting Costco sells wild caught salmon, and we do get that. It's better than what we get at the Kroger.
Since moving from the Pacific Northwest, I've developed a sensitivity to some seafood, even stuff labeled wild caught. And I think that's because the fish in the Portland metro area and the Oregon coast is so fresh.
Yeah.
That it's still really good. The freshest seafood I've ever had, the absolute freshest, was in a place that was featured in Dirty Jobs. Mike Rowe went to it was a fish processing place with a little deli at the front. The fish processing place, the fishermen would roll their boats in, unload the fish, and they process it right there, right? And then you could buy fish and chips that had been caught literally an hour earlier for your lunch. Best seafood I've ever had. It's not usually reassuring, though, to endorse a place by saying, by the way, this restaurant was featured on Dirty Jobs.
Yeah.
Right? That's not usually a ringing endorsement, but, you know.
Yeah, there's places like that in Massachusetts,
Ocean Pacific or something near Garibaldi in Oregon. For those
the restaurant would buy the product right off the boat they had just docked. Mm-hmm. It is the best. I've the best salmon I've ever had was in Alaska. I mean, it was just so good. The king crab legs. We went there and we bought them off of a truck that had just caught them out of the bay, Prince William Sound or whatever. It's just so good. And of course, we went fishing and we got halibut, and he brought back a whole cooler full of halibut filleted up in 1 to 2 pound fillets, and we ate that for a whole year. It was so good. In fact, I am very tempted to take one of my sons and get the cheapest Spirit Airlines flights we can get to Alaska and live in the back of a U-Haul truck for a week and just fish and bring home just a cooler full of fish. I mean, it would be maybe $1,000 worth of expenses to get up there and back, but you'd have fish for a whole year. That would just be the best, freshest fish ever. I mean, be totally worth.
I had a friend in college who was very what we call dissident right wing. Back before that was cool at all, right? And he and his family were kind of gun nuts. And he took a trip to Alaska one year for fishing, and they had to ship their firearms ahead of time.
Yeah.
And I couldn't figure out, why are you going fishing and bringing large firearms with you? And these were not like a little self-defense thing. No, I mean, these were for self-defense because they were way deep out.
Yeah.
Yeah. They were bringing solid slug 12-gauge shotguns with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were bringing high caliber rifles.
We had a
fun
guide
shooting.
who had
But
a
also
50
because
caliber
you don't
handgun,
wanna
and
run
it was
into
a short
Kodiak
barrel.
out there. Right.
Yeah.
Because most of the bears out there, your normal hunting rifles will do nothing to except make them very angry.
Yeah,
What he
they'll
was
die
bringing
eventually.
very
But
large.
they'll kill
Well,
you
yeah, but you'd
first.
probably die first.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
If you're doing this, go prepared. You know, going back to
100%.
tools, like a lot of Catholics don't like guns. I'm like, guns are a tool. We use for good, evil, or somewhere in between.
Oysters are nasty. I'm on your team, John Paul Sandoval. I just wish
Oh,
my wife
come on.
would believe me.
Oysters are
I
among
like
oysters.
oysters.
They're
I
among
like
they're among the
oysters with steak.
healthiest foods you can eat.
My wife just got clams
are.
for her birthday, and she just ate them up. I mean, and she's like a kid in a candy store with that stuff. I, however, not on that team.
Last week I made I opened a tin of smoked oysters and I just had them on saltine crackers with tons of sriracha, and it was so good I decided to try out a recipe for an oyster stew, kind of like an oyster chowder. It turned out pretty good for my first ever attempt.
I don't mind oyster chowder.
It was
That's
nice.
good.
One of the most
That's good.
disgusting things I've ever had was oyster stuffing.
Ugh.
Oh, where you chop it up into the stuffing to go with turkey or whatever?
Yeah.
Oh,
Many years
No,
ago, I was
thanks.
dating a girl, and her dad invited me over on Thanksgiving, and it was like almost like a test for to see or something. And I tried the stuffing, and I got it down. I didn't complain about it, but legitimately one of the worst things I've ever eaten.
Really?
That was
Wow.
identifiably an American food. Like, oh,
do you
there are
think that was
certain
just
things that I
the
know would be
preparation of
worse.
it though? Because that is a classic ingredient for stuffing is to use oysters.
It's a regional one. It's a very, very regional thing.
Okay,
I don't know
interesting.
what part of the country they were from originally where they were doing that, because I met them because they moved from like Victorville area in California to Portland, Oregon.
Yeah.
Many years ago.
Gregory's funny.
Although
Gregory's
it was
like, clams for the birthday. Couldn't you afford pearls, Joe? I didn't buy her the clams her brother bought. Her brother and her sister-in-law bought the clams and had they shipped them to us alive, by the way. They
Nice.
were alive, and then she cooked them up from there.
Raw
I
and
didn't buy my
wriggly.
wife pearls either. Truth in advertising, I took my wife out for breakfast and took her to
There
a
you go.
fish market. That's what I did for her birthday.
See,
So there's that.
that is a great trip. That is wonderful.
My
Breakfast
wife's
and then the
birthday
fish
is
market.
sandwiched between St. Patrick's Day and St. Joseph's Day, which means
Wow.
every single year her birthday's in Lent.
Yeah.
And so
Yes.
usually during Holy Week we'll go out for dinner and things.
Yeah, she wouldn't let me splurge more on her that way. She really wanted it to be more muted, so we just did breakfast brunch together. That was nice, quite nice. We enjoyed our time, but yeah, I would have done more if she let me. I tried, but she didn't. She wasn't up for it because it is in Lent. She didn't want to splurge too much. Drew Black, New England cuisine is different. Well, kind of like if you're living on the ocean, you are going to get better seafood. The problem with the Gulf Coast is we got brown water, so it's just less. It's just not as exciting as the blue ocean of the
You get-
Atlantic or the
You
Pacific.
get great shrimp here. And a lot of the other kinds of fish like that, but that's about it. I mean, one thing I'd like to try is like Manhattan style clam chowder. Even though it sounds gross, I kind of get the feeling it's really good. You know what the Manhattan style is? It's a tomato base clam chowder.
Oh, interesting. Never
I
had
think
that.
it's Manhattan style.
Wow.
I don't know. I probably angered some Bostonian by saying that,
Probably.
Equivalent of telling
Good
Italian
chowder,
that you
Bobby.
put pineapple on pizza.
I always liked Maine style chowder. It was always really good. Man, we used to love the chowder up when we lived up in New England. You don't get that down here. My wife was very surprised. We lived next to this fish market for 20 years, but we've never been to it. I don't know why we've never been to it, but they get clams there. And my wife, that's the one thing she misses most from living in New England. She's born and raised in Massachusetts, and that was not being able to get clams. We go to these restaurants around here, and nobody sells clams. So we could have this whole time we could have been getting her clams at this place, and never bothered to step in there. Now I'm like ready to leave this place and move to some other spot. And this whole time we're realizing we had this resource next to us. We could have done it. MB Slick says, yes, Manhattan style clam chowder is my favorite. No kidding.
I prefer
By the way,
the New England.
Gogwensa 61, good morning to you. Thanks for hanging out with us again. Mussels. My wife loves the mussels.
Yes.
She can get mussels. They do sell mussels at the store here. She gets those on occasion.
Mussels are probably, aside from raw oysters, mussels are my favorite shellfish. I love mussels.
Well, that's just you being shellfish.
Yes. I'll climb up now.
Steamed crabs with JO number 2. What's JO number 2?
I would guess that's like a spice rub or something like that, kind of like Old Bay, but maybe not. Maybe it's a sauce. J.O. number 2. What is it? Yep, it's a spice mix. J.O. number 2 seasoning.
J.O.
popular in
two.
Maryland. Okay. J.O. Spice
Oh,
Company.
well, that explains some things.
Yep.
One time I cooked mussels for Valentine's Day for the missus and a bottle of wine. It all went into the bin. It was awful. It took me hours to clean the mussels. 2, she still rewarded me for trying. Aw.
Aw. It's the thought that counts.
So here's what you do. Mussels are best gotten at a Brazilian steakhouse because they have the whole salad and hot food buffet, and they have fresh oysters and fresh mussels that are safe to eat raw because they're paying extra for them. And you're paying that Brazilian steakhouse price to access it.
Yeah,
That's the only
buddy.
time I'll ever eat them.
A
It's also
fogo
like a
de
once a year on my
chao.
wife's birthday kind of
That is
thing.
our favorite Brazilian
We don't have a
steakhouses.
fogo de chao here. We have a couple other ones, but yeah.
Fogo.
Same-
In fact,
same
my wife and I are gonna wait till after Lent for our next date night at Fogo de Chao. It's good stuff.
There's a Tejas de Brazil here in Buffalo. I need to try it out. I haven't been there yet.
Yeah, there's one in Oklahoma City. We've been wanting to try.
the
We call
carnivore
it Texas
delight.
to Brazil because
Yeah, Texas to Brazil.
All right, guys, we'll see you back here Monday morning. I think we have Bree Solstad on to talk about forgiving one's self for your past sins. We'll see you there. God love you. God bless you.